Welcome to my channel. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and like. The iron sand of Clyros 7 stretched out like a lifeless ocean under a leaden sky. Each grain, sharp as broken glass, caught the crimson-orange glow of the twin suns, casting streaks of light that looked like blood spilled across a blade. Wind howled through eroded stone pillars, carrying the acrid stench of scorched metal and toxic chemicals from explosions that had torn this land apart just hours ago. Ryan Kessler, a sergeant in the Human Defense Corps, trudged across the ravaged battlefield. His tactical armor was shredded, the left shoulder torn open, exposing a blood-soaked undershirt, not all of it his blood. His legs felt like lead, each step dragging as if he were hauling an entire planet. 3 days had passed since his squad was ambushed by the Sylari, an alien race with shimmering, liquid steel skin and eyes that burned like embers. 3 days since the last evacuation ship was shot down, leaving him the sole survivor of his unit. The water in his canteen was gone, just a few drops clinging to the bottom, each sip a grim reminder that his time was running out. The comms unit on his hip crackled intermittently, spitting static laced with the final screams of soldiers he'd never met, like ghosts echoing across the dead desert. Ryan paused, bracing himself against a jagged piece of a transport ship's wreckage. His breath came heavy, fogging the cracked visor of his helmet. Through the swirling haze of iron dust, something glinted, not metal, but something, alive. He squinted, straining to see through the oppressive heat. A figure lay motionless beneath the rubble of a Sylari structure, its strange, curving architecture resembling the spine of some colossal beast. As he drew closer, his heart pounded. It was a Sylari. Her metallic skin shimmered under the twin suns, though now it was cracked and marred with burned scars. A female warrior, judging by her slender frame and the intricate carvings on her shattered armor, a mark of a high-ranking hunter in Sylari society. Emerald green blood oozed from a deep gash in her chest, pooling in a small, glittering puddle on the sand. She was alive, but barely. Her chest rose and fell faintly, like a candle flickering against the wind. Ryan's hand drifted to the pistol at his hip, fingers brushing the cold metal. The Sylari were the enemy. He'd seen them rip through his squad with plasma blades sharp as starlight, heard their roars of triumph as human blood soaked the sand. But something in her closed eyes made him hesitate. Maybe it was her fragility, a vulnerability he never thought he'd see in a Sylari. Or maybe it was the memory of Emily, his little sister, the one he couldn't save. Damn it! Ryan muttered, cursing himself for wavering. He knelt beside her, inspecting the debris pinning her body. A twisted metal beam, 5 times his weight, crushed her leg. If he didn't move it, she'd die. Maybe in hours, maybe minutes, if infection spread in this lethal heat. But why should he care? She was the enemy. She might have been the one who killed his squad. Ryan shook his head, pushing the thoughts away. He wasn't the type to overthink, not in the middle of a war. He acted. Scavenging a long, sturdy piece of ship wreckage, he fashioned a crude lever. Every muscle in his body screamed as he threw his weight against it. The metal groaned, sand crunched, and inch by agonizing inch, the beam began to budge. The Sylari's eyes snapped open. Her golden pupils, blazing like the core of a star, locked onto him. She tried to speak, but only a rasping sound escaped, like wind over broken stone. Don't move, Ryan said. I'm getting you out. She stared at him. Human, why? She asked, as if his actions were beyond comprehension. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. Instead, he kept working the lever, sweat streaming down his forehead, mixing with the iron dust caked on his face. When the beam finally lifted enough, he dragged her free from the rubble. Her body was lighter than he expected, yet solid, like it was forged from some alien alloy. The wound on her chest bled faster now, dark red streaks spreading from the gash, a sign of infection. In this heat, with the air thick with toxic dust, she didn't have long. Ryan slumped down, gasping for breath, and looked at the warrior. She propped herself up on her elbows, her gaze still fixed on him. Her hand moved slowly to the curved dagger at her hip, a Sylari weapon, its blade gleaming like starlight. Ryan tensed, ready to draw his pistol, but she did something unexpected. She pulled the dagger free, gripped the hilt, and held it out to him. "Take it," she said. "If you survive, you'll need it." Ryan eyed the dagger, its thin, razor-sharp blade etched with intricate patterns, like a piece of art. He shook his head. "I don't need a blade," he said. "I don't carry blades. I carry people." She stared at him, her golden eyes flashing with confusion, as if his words were a riddle. Ryan didn't wait for her to respond. He scoured the surrounding wreckage, gathering materials for a makeshift stretcher. Transport ship scraps, straps from a tactical backpack, flexible alloy sheets from the Sylari structure, all pieced together, secured with calloused hands used to fixing things under pressure. When the stretcher was done, Ryan carefully lifted her onto the cold alloy surface. She was heavier than he'd anticipated, her muscles and bones built for a harsher world than Earth. "What's your name?" he asked as he tied down the straps. "Vera," she replied. "Third-tier hunter of the Ravith clan." "Ryan Kessler," he said, not looking at her. "Sergeant, Human Defense Corps. Now shut up and let me work." He started pulling the stretcher, his boots sinking into the iron sand, each step a battle of its own. Clyro's 7's twin suns blazed overhead, their red-orange light blurring his vision, turning the desert into a giant forge. Vera lay still, but her eyes never left him, as if trying to decode some strange phenomenon. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "You humans always chase death. Why save an enemy?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He focused on dragging the stretcher, adjusting the straps to ease the strain on his shoulders. "Because I've left people behind before," he said after a moment. "I'm not doing it again." Vera fell silent, but her gaze shifted, not pure suspicion anymore, but a deeper curiosity. They pressed on through the desert, the crunch of sand under the stretcher blending with the wail of the wind. Ryan knew their destination, Delta 9 Supply Station, a small human outpost about 3 days' march away, if nothing got in their way. But in war, nothing in the way was a pipe dream. The first day passed in silence, broken only by Ryan's labored breathing and Vera's dry coughs as iron dust crept into her lungs. The heat spiked during the day, turning the sand into a searing plate, then plummeted at night, their breath forming white clouds in the frigid air. Ryan rigged a metal sheet to shield Vera from the sun, but he couldn't protect himself. Sweat soaked his shirt, his lips cracked and bled. Vera, though weak, watched him. "You humans are strange," she said one afternoon, as they rested in the shadow of an eroded stone pillar. "You fight like beasts, but you tend to your enemies like kin." Ryan shrugged, checking her wound. The infection had spread, dark red streaks crawling up her shoulder. He pulled out his emergency medkit, just 2 antibiotic injectors and a few bandages left. "It's not tending," he said, jabbing an injector into her arm. "It's just making sure you don't die before I figure out why." She let out a dry laugh, like stones grinding together. "Why? You humans always need a reason. We Sylari follow the law. Live or die. Kill or be killed." Ryan didn't respond. He stood and resumed pulling the stretcher. Her words clung to him, though, like the iron dust on his skin. He thought about what had brought him here, not just the war with the Sylari, but the choices he'd made, the people he'd lost, the promises he couldn't keep. On the second night, as the twin suns set, Clyro's 7th sky turned a deep purple, shimmering with bands of stardust. Ryan built a small tent from scraps, just enough to block the biting cold. Vera burned with fever, her body trembling despite the alloy sheet wrapped around her. Ryan sat beside her, checking his comms, still just static and fragments of dead soldiers' signals. In her delirium, Vera muttered in the Sylari tongue, sharp words like blades. Ryan didn't understand, but he caught the name, Zykra, repeated, like a prayer or a curse. He touched her shoulder, trying to rouse her. "Who's Zykra?" he asked. She opened her eyes, their golden glow dulled by fever. "My sister," she said. "My guide. The one who betrayed us." Ryan frowned. "Betrayed? How?" Vera turned her face away, as if regretting her words. But after a moment, she spoke again. Zykra led a hunting party to one of your bases. But she spared your civilians. She said they didn't deserve death. The clan called it weakness. They branded her a traitor and I. She paused, her breath shaky. I was ordered to hunt her down. Ryan stared at her, feeling a piece of the puzzle click into place. So you were on your way to kill your sister when your ship got shot down? She didn't answer, but her eyes said enough. Ryan shook his head, turning back to the stretcher. Family's messy, huh? By the third morning, Ryan spotted signs of a Sylari patrol, deep footprints in the sand, scorched streaks from plasma weapons. He crouched to examine them. They're hunting someone, he said. Maybe us. Maybe your sister. Vera, though weak, tried to sit up. If it's the Ravith clan, they won't stop. They don't forgive. Ever. Ryan checked his rifle. 3 mags left, not enough for a full Sylari hunting party. He scanned the horizon, where a dust cloud was growing. We need to move faster, he said, tightening the stretcher's straps. Or we're both dead before we reach Delta 9. They pressed on, but the terrain grew harsher. Crumbling stone pillars gave way to narrow canyons, where iron sand piled into small, cutting storms that stung like 1,000 knives. The stretcher's weight felt heavier, not just from his aching muscles but from the questions gnawing at him. Why was he saving Vera? Why risk his life for an enemy? Could he even make it to Delta 9 before they were hunted down? At midday, when the twin suns burned at their peak, Ryan heard the whine of plasma engines, the unmistakable sound of Sylari patrol ships. He dragged Vera into a narrow rock crevice, covering her with a flexible alloy sheet. Don't move, he said, gripping his rifle. Through the crevice, he saw 3 crescent-shaped patrol ships glide by, their hulls gleaming like Vera's skin. They flew low, scanning the ground with red sensor beams. Ryan held his breath, praying the alloy hid their heat signatures. But one ship stopped, its nose swiveling toward the crevice. They've spotted us, Vera said. Leave me. You still have a chance to run. Ryan shot her a glare. You talk too much for someone half dead. He scanned the terrain, realizing the crevice was a trap, no escape, no cover. But he noticed something else, the wreckage of a plasma cannon on a nearby hillside. If he could reach it, he might trigger its power core, creating an explosion big enough to throw off the patrols. Without a second thought, Ryan bolted from the crevice, zigzagging through the iron sand as the patrol ship's whine grew louder. A plasma bolt scorched the ground near him, kicking up a fiery burst of sand. He dove over a piece of debris, rolled down the hill, and reached the cannon. The power core still hummed, but the wiring was fried. Hands shaking with adrenaline, he started repairs, drawing on his old technician skills from before he was a soldier. The patrol ships closed in, their sensor beams sweeping over him like a giant eye. Ryan gritted his teeth, splicing the final wire. A deafening blast erupted as the core overloaded, unleashing a blinding white flash that engulfed the nearest ship. The other 2 peeled back, but Ryan knew they'd return with reinforcements. He sprinted back to the crevice, pulled Vera out, and resumed their trek. You're insane, she said. Crazy's how we survive. Ryan replied, flashing a faint grin despite his racing heart. That evening, they stopped in a shallow cave formed by broken stone. Ryan checked Vera's wound. The antibiotics had slowed the infection, but not enough to stop it. He pulled out his last water bottle, weighing whether to drink or use it to clean her injury. After a moment, he poured it over the wound, wiping away blood and pus with a torn strip of his shirt. You'll die if you don't drink, Vera said. You'll die if I don't do this. Ryan shot back, not meeting her eyes. I'd rather die of thirst than let you die of infection. She was quiet for a moment, then said, Zykra used to talk like you. That an enemy's life matters. I thought she was weak. Now, I'm not so sure. Ryan didn't respond. He thought of Emily, his sister, killed 3 years ago in a Sylari attack. She was 16, a trainee nurse in a field hospital, when a Sylari hunting party leveled the place. He'd sworn to kill every Sylari he met, yet here he was, risking his life to save one. The contradiction stabbed at his chest like a blade. As they prepared to move on, Ryan's comms crackled, shattering the silence. A faint, static-laced voice came through. "This is Delta 9 Station. Any survivors out there? We're surrounded. Need immediate assistance." "Sylari, they're coming." Ryan's blood ran cold. Delta 9 was still standing, but under attack. He looked at Vera, then at the horizon, where distant explosions flickered like falling stars. "We've got to get there," he said. "There are civilians there. Maybe your sister, too." Vera's hand tightened on her dagger. "If Zykra's there, I have to face her. Not for you, but for the clan." Ryan nodded, though he knew it wouldn't be that simple. He secured the stretcher, bracing for the next leg of the journey. But as he started pulling, a new sound cut through the air, the screech of Sylari patrol ships, louder, faster, heading straight for them. In the sky, a red streak blazed like a meteor, but Ryan knew it wasn't a meteor. It was a Sylari dropship, carrying a hunting party, and maybe the secrets about Zygra that Vera wasn't ready to face. He looked at Vera. "You ready? Things are about to get a whole lot worse." She smiled for the first time, a sharp, blade-like grin. "You humans never give up, do you?" "Nope," Ryan said, pulling the stretcher forward, his heart pounding with resolve. "And I'm not letting you give up either." The iron sand of Clyros 7 crunched under Ryan Kessler's boots as he dragged the makeshift stretcher through a narrow valley, where shattered stone pillars jutted up like the bones of some long-dead beast. The twin red suns hung low in the sky, their light turning the sand into a shimmering sea of molten fire. Sweat poured down Ryan's forehead, mixing with the iron dust caked on his face, stinging his skin raw. Vera, the Sylari warrior, lay on the stretcher, her breathing faint but steadier than yesterday. The last dose of antibiotics had slowed the infection, but the gash on her chest still oozed emerald blood, and her blazing golden eyes often clouded with fever. Ryan's mind kept circling back to the signal from Delta 9 Station, a faint voice crackling through his comms, reporting the outpost was under siege. Civilians, maybe even Vera's sister Zygra, were there, and their time was running out. But the Sylari hunting party, with their crescent-shaped patrol ships and the dropship that appeared yesterday, was closing in. Ryan could feel them, like a storm gathering silently at his back. "You should leave me behind," Vera said, breaking the silence. She tried to sit up on the stretcher, but Ryan shook his head, motioning for her to lie back down. "That's the third time you've said that," he replied, adjusting the stretcher's straps to ease the strain on his shoulders. "Keep it up, and I'll start thinking you actually want to die." She looked at him, her golden eyes flickering with something, not quite anger, but confusion. "You humans don't understand the law," she said. "The Ravith clan doesn't forgive. If they find me, they'll kill us both. You're dragging me straight to your own grave." Ryan paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "Maybe. But if I leave you behind, how do I live with that? I've abandoned enough people already." He thought of Emily, his little sister, her radiant smile as she slipped on her trainee nurse's uniform, before a Sylari hunting party reduced the field hospital to ash. He shook his head, banishing the memory, and kept pulling the stretcher. Vera stayed quiet, but her gaze didn't leave him. She gripped the dagger at her hip, her fingers tracing the intricate carvings on its hilt. "Zygra used to talk like you," she said after a moment. "That an enemy's life has value. I thought she was a fool. Now I'm starting to wonder if I'm the fool." Ryan shrugged. "Fool or not, I'm not letting you die. Now rest. We've got a long way to go." They pressed through the valley, where the terrain grew more treacherous. Deep fissures slashed across the ground, forcing Ryan to take detours that slowed their progress. Iron sand clung to his boots, each step feeling like he was dragging a piece of the planet itself. He checked his comms, still just static, no new signal from Delta 9. That worried him more than the whine of Sylari patrol ships. Silence usually meant death. As the twin suns began to set, the sky turned a deep purple, shimmering with bands of stardust. Ryan stopped in a shallow cave formed by broken stone. He rigged a sheet of alloy as a windbreak, then checked Vera's wound. The infection was still spreading, but slower. He tore a strip from his shirt, dipped it in the last of his water, and cleaned the dried blood around the gash. "You're wasting water," Vera said, watching him. "You need it more than I do. You need to live more than I need water." Ryan shot back, continuing his work. He didn't look at her, but he felt her golden eyes tracking his every move. As he tied off the bandage, her cold, strong fingers brushed his hand. "You're not like the other humans I've hunted," she said. "They fight to survive. You're fighting for something else." Ryan paused, meeting her gaze. "Maybe I'm just tired of watching people die." He stood, checking his rifle. 3 mags, not enough to take on a Sylari hunting party, but enough to make them think twice if he played it smart. That night, as Ryan kept watch by a small fire made from smoldering ship scraps, Vera spoke of Zykra. Her words came haltingly, fevered but raw with emotion. Zykra was her older sister, a legendary hunter of the Ravith clan, leading raids with deadly precision. But 3 years ago, during an attack on a human outpost, Zykra did the unthinkable. She spared a group of civilians, women and children. The clan branded it betrayal, a stain on Sylari law, where only life or death mattered. Zykra was sentenced to death, and Vera, the clan's youngest but most skilled hunter, was tasked with tracking her down. "I didn't want to do it," Vera said, staring into the fire. "But the law is everything. If I didn't obey, I'd be a traitor too." Ryan watched her, the firelight dancing on her metallic skin. "Your law sounds like a cage," he said. "Zykra must have seen something worth breaking it for." She shook her head. "You don't get it. The clan is blood. It's honor. Zykra threw it all away to save outsiders." Ryan thought of Emily, of the moment he learned the field hospital had been hit. He'd been thousands of miles away, fighting another pointless skirmish. He couldn't save her, but he wondered if the Sylari who attacked had ever hesitated, ever seen kids like Emily and thought of their own families. "Maybe Zykra saw something you haven't yet," he said. "Sometimes, saving others is how you save yourself." Vera didn't reply, but her eyes shifted, as if his words had struck something deep within her. The next morning, Ryan spotted fresh tracks, not just Sylari footprints, but fragments of a human ship. He knelt, examining a scorched metal piece, recognizing the Human Defense Corps insignia. "This was one of our patrol ships," he said, a chill running down his spine. "They were shot down. Recently." Vera, though weak, propped herself up. "The Ravith clan leaves no survivors. If they were here, Delta 9 might already be gone." Ryan refused to believe it, but the calm silence was a bad sign. He tightened the stretcher's straps, determined to move faster. "We'll find out," he said. "If anyone's still alive, we'll get them out." They pushed through the valley, but the terrain grew tougher. Deep cracks in the ground forced Ryan onto dangerous detours, where iron sand whipped into small storms, slicing his skin like 1,000 tiny blades. His body was breaking down, dehydrated, exhausted, the stretcher's weight growing heavier by the hour. But every time he wanted to stop, Emily's face flashed in his mind, her smile and trusting eyes saying, "Don't give up, big brother." At noon, with the twin suns scorching everything, Ryan heard the familiar whine of plasma engines. He yanked Vera into a narrow rock crevice, covering her with a flexible alloy sheet. "Don't move," he said, gripping his rifle. Through the crevice, he saw 4 Sylari patrol ships glide by, their hulls gleaming like Vera's skin. They flew low, sweeping the ground with red sensor beams. Ryan held his breath, hoping the alloy masked their heat signatures. But one ship stopped, its nose swiveling toward the crevice, as if it had picked up something. "They know we're here," Vera said. "Leave me, Ryan. You still have a shot." He glared at her. "You really think I dragged you this far just to ditch you now?" He scanned the terrain, realizing the crevice was a death trap. No exit, no cover. But on a nearby hillside something caught his eye, an abandoned human defense core missile launcher, its power core still intact. "Stay put," he told Vera, then bolted from the crevice, zigzagging through the iron sand. A plasma bolt scorched the ground near him, kicking up a fiery burst of sand. He dove over debris, rolled down the hill, and reached the launcher. The power core was active, but the targeting system was fried. Hands shaking with adrenaline, he started repairs, drawing on his pre-war technician skills. The patrol ships closed in, their sensor beams sweeping over him like a giant eye. Ryan gritted his teeth, splicing the final wire. A deafening blast roared as the core launched a missile, tearing the nearest ship into a fireball. The other three peeled back, but Ryan knew they'd return with reinforcements. He sprinted back to the crevice, pulled Vera out, and kept moving. "You're out of your mind," she said, but this time, her eyes held a glint of something like respect. "Maybe," Ryan said, flashing a faint grin. "But I'm still alive, and so are you." On the third night, they stopped by a dry lake bed, where iron sand swirled in strange patterns, as if the planet were whispering an ancient tale. Ryan set up a tent, checking Vera's wound. The infection had slowed, but she was still weak, her breathing shallow, her eyes dim with fever. He sat beside her, staring at the stardust-filled sky, feeling the weight of the universe on his shoulders. "Have you ever lost someone?" Vera asked, breaking the silence. Ryan looked at her, surprised by the question. He thought of Emily, of the day he got the news she was gone. "My sister," he said. "She was a nurse in a field hospital. The Sylari hit it. She didn't make it out." Vera was quiet for a moment, then spoke. "I lost my father in the war against humans. He was a hunter, like me. He taught me how to wield a blade, how to track. But he never taught me how to forgive." Ryan stared into the fire. "Forgiving's the hard part. I haven't figured it out yet." Her golden eyes gleamed in the dark. "Then why save me? If you hate the Sylari, why not let me die?" Ryan shook his head. "Because if I let you die, I'd become the thing I hate. I don't fight to kill. I fight to hold on to what's left." The next morning, they neared Delta 9. Through the iron dust, Ryan glimpsed the outpost's faint outline, a low metal structure ringed by black smoke columns. He paused, scanning through binoculars. Delta 9's walls were pockmarked with plasma burns, signs of a recent attack. But what made his heart race was a group of survivors, civilians and a few soldiers, holding out inside, surrounded by a Sylari hunting party. "We're too late," Vera said, peering over his shoulder. "The Ravith clan doesn't leave survivors." Ryan shook his head. "Not too late. If there's people alive, we're getting them out." He checked his rifle, counting 3 mags. Not enough, but he was used to working with what he had. He turned to Vera. "Can you stand?" She nodded, though her body trembled. She drew her dagger, gripping it tightly. "I'm not your burden," she said. "If it's a fight, I'm in." Ryan nodded, a sudden respect for her welling up. "Good. We're gonna need everything we've got." They approached Delta 9 under the shadow of a massive stone pillar, where Ryan could scout without being spotted. The Sylari hunting party numbered 10 warriors, moving with lethal precision. Armed with plasma weapons and daggers, they surrounded the outpost on 3 sides. Ryan noticed something. They weren't rushing to attack. They were waiting, likely for the dropship he'd seen yesterday. "We need to distract them," Ryan said, scanning the terrain. Nearby, he spotted an abandoned fuel depot, its power core still intact. If he could trigger it, the explosion might disrupt the hunters, giving the civilians a chance to escape. "What's the plan?" Vera asked, clutching her dagger. "A diversion," Ryan said. "You stay here, hold position." She shook her head. "I'm going with you. I'm a hunter, not a coward." Ryan met her gaze, seeing the resolve in her golden eyes. "Fine," he said. "But if I say run, you run." They crept to the fuel depot, hiding behind ship wreckage. Ryan worked fast, splicing the power core's wires. Vera stood guard, dagger ready. When a Sylari warrior emerged from the shadows, she lunged, her blades slicing through the air, parrying his attack. Their daggers clashed, sparking. Ryan wanted to help, but he couldn't leave the core. Vera fought with a hunter's precision, but her wounds slowed her. The Sylari warrior forced her back, his blade inches from her throat. Ryan gritted his teeth, finishing the last connection. A thunderous blast erupted as the core unleashed a fireball, swallowing 2 nearby Sylari warriors. The remaining hunters scattered, falling back to regroup. "Run!" Ryan shouted, grabbing Vera and bolting toward the outpost. They charged through the smoke, iron sand coating their faces. As they reached Delta 9's breached wall, a scarred human soldier aimed a rifle at them. "Freeze!" the soldier yelled. "Who are you? Why's a Sylari with you?" "Ryan Kessler, Defense Corps," Ryan said, raising his hands. "She's an ally. We're here to help." The soldier hesitated, then lowered his weapon. "Watch your back," he said, leading them inside. Inside Delta 9, the scene was a nightmare. Civilians, women, children, and wounded soldiers, huddled in a concrete room, red emergency lights casting fearful shadows on their faces. At the center stood a Sylari woman, her metallic skin etched with intricate patterns but marred by burned scars. Ryan knew instantly, this was Zykra, Vera's sister. Vera froze, her hand tightening on her dagger. "Sister," she said, the word dragged from somewhere deep inside her. Zykra looked at her, her golden eyes brimming with emotion. "Vera," she said, "have you come to kill me?" Ryan stepped between them. "Nobody's killing anybody," he said. "We need to get everyone out before the hunters come back." Zykra studied him, then Vera. "You've changed," she said to her sister. "I see it in your eyes." Vera didn't respond, but her grip on the dagger loosened. Ryan turned to the scarred soldier. "Where's the evac ship?" "Docking Bay 3, the soldier said. "But it only holds 20. We've got 30 civilians plus you." Ryan did the math. "Not enough room." "I'll stay," he said. "I'll keep the hunters busy so you can get out." Vera stared at him. "You can't," she said. "You dragged me this far. I'm not letting you die." Ryan gave a faint smile. "You're starting to sound human." Before they could plan further, an explosion shook the outpost. The Sylari hunters were back, and this time, they'd brought a dropship. Ryan raced to the defense console, its screens showing 15 Sylari warriors advancing, backed by a massive metal spider, a combat drone with plasma blades. He knew they couldn't fight it in their state. "Get the civilians to the ship," he told Zykra. "I'll hold them off." Zykra grabbed his arm. "You don't understand," she said. "The Ravith clan isn't just hunting me. They're after all of us, humans, Sylari, anyone who defies their law." Ryan looked at her, then at Vera. "Then we'll show them a new law." He turned to the console, activating the outpost's automated defenses, aging laser turrets that still worked. They wouldn't stop the hunters, but they might buy a few minutes. Vera stood beside him, dagger in hand. "I'm fighting with you," she said. "Not for Zykra, but for you." Ryan nodded, feeling a strange connection to her, not quite allies, not quite friends, but something deeper. "All right," he said. "Let's show them what humans and Sylari can do together." As the Sylari hunters stormed the outpost, Ryan and Vera fought as a unit. He fired precise shots, dropping 3 warriors before they could close in. Vera, despite her weakness, moved like a shadow, her dagger slicing through Sylari armor like it was nothing. But the spider drone advanced, its plasma blades tearing through concrete walls like paper. Ryan pulled Vera behind debris, dodging a plasma burst. "We need to hit its power core," he said, pointing to the glowing belly of the machine. "But I need you to draw its attention." Vera nodded, no hesitation. She darted out, baiting the drone, while Ryan sprinted to a damaged laser turret. He repaired it frantically, splicing wires under a hail of iron sand and plasma fire. As the drone turned toward Vera, Ryan fired the turret, a laser beam piercing the core. The drone exploded, shaking the outpost, and the remaining Sylari hunters fell back in disarray. But the victory was short-lived. In the distance, Ryan heard the dropships whine, and the defense screens showed a larger force approaching, dozens of warriors, led by a Sylari with metallic skin etched with leaders' markings. Ryan knew instantly, this wasn't an ordinary hunting party. This was a death squad, sent to wipe out everything. Vera stood beside him, gasping, emerald blood dripping from a new wound on her shoulder. "That's Zorith," she said. "The clan's huntmaster. If he's here, no one survives." Ryan looked at her, then at the civilians rushing to the evac ship. "They'll survive," he said. "And so will you. I promise." Her golden eyes gleamed with an emotion she couldn't name. "You promise too much, human," she said. "But this time, I believe you." The iron sand of Clyros 7 shimmered under the crimson-orange glow of the twin suns, like a sea of smoldering embers. Ryan Kessler stood behind the crumbling wall of Delta 9 Station, his hands gripping his rifle, down to just 2 mags. Beside him, Vera, the Sylari warrior, clutched her dagger, emerald blood seeping from a fresh wound on her shoulder. Inside the outpost, civilians, women, children, and a few wounded soldiers scrambled toward the evac ship in Docking Bay 3. But Ryan knew the ship couldn't hold everyone, and the Sylari death squad, led by the Huntmaster Zorith, was closing in with lethal speed. The distant whine of a dropship echoed, a grim warning that their time was almost up. Ryan glanced at Zykra, Vera's sister, guiding civilians through a smoke-filled concrete corridor. Her metallic skin glinted under the flickering emergency lights, but the burned scars across her body told a story of defiance and sacrifice. "Get them out," Ryan said to Zykra. "Vera and I will hold off the hunters." Zykra looked at him, then at Vera. "Little sister," she said, her golden eyes brimming with emotion. "You don't have to do this. Come with me." Vera shook her head, her grip tightening on her dagger. "No more running," she said. "I'm staying. For him." She glanced at Ryan, her gaze no longer the wary stare of a hunter but a deep, unshakable trust. Ryan nodded, a strange strength surging in his chest. "Go," he told Zykra. "We'll buy you time." Zykra hesitated, then nodded, leading the civilians toward the ship. Ryan turned to Vera. "Ready?" he asked, checking his rifle one last time. She smiled, a sharp, blade-like grin warmed by something unexpected. "You humans never get scared, do you?" "Oh, I'm scared," Ryan said, flashing a faint grin. "I'm just good at hiding it." The Sylari death squad stormed the outpost like a whirlwind. 15 warriors, led by Zorith, a towering Sylari with metallic skin etched with leaders' markings, moved with deadly precision. They wielded plasma blades and energy rifles, their weapons casting red light across the concrete corridors. Ryan and Vera took cover behind a piece of ship wreckage, waiting for their moment. Ryan triggered the outpost's automated defenses, aging laser turrets that spat beams, dropping 2 Sylari warriors before a plasma grenade blew them apart. "Now!" he shouted, leaping from cover, firing precise shots into the weak points of Sylari armor. Vera surged forward, her dagger slicing through the air, stopping a warrior before he could strike Ryan. They fought as a team, their movements almost instinctive. Ryan cleared paths with his rifle, while Vera used her hunter's speed and precision to take down anyone who got too close. But Zorith was a different beast. He loomed in the corridor's center, his plasma blade twice the length of Vera's dagger, each swing shaking the ground. Ryan unleashed a burst of rounds at him, but Zorith's metallic skin seemed impervious. "Who are you, human?" Zorith said, advancing on Ryan. "Why protect a traitor?" Ryan didn't answer, instead landing a shot on Zorith's shoulder, forcing him back a step. Vera charged, her dagger clashing with Zorith's, sparks flying. "He's no traitor," she gasped. "He's the one who saved me." Zorith glared at her, his ember-red eyes dripping with contempt. "You've caught the human's weakness," he said. "You're no longer Ravith." Vera didn't respond, but her eyes blazed with resolve. She dodged a swing from Zorith, signaling Ryan. "The power core!" she shouted, pointing to a damaged machine at the corridor's end, a glowing reserve core for the outpost. Ryan got it instantly. If they could overload the core, the explosion could wipe out the hunters, but it might take the outpost, and them, with it. He sprinted to the machine, hands ripping open the control panel, while Vera held Zorath at bay. She fought with everything she had, her dagger a blur of light. But Zorath was too strong, and a slash from his blade tore across her shoulder, dropping her to the ground, emerald blood pooling on the floor. "Vera!" Ryan yelled, but he couldn't leave the core. He spliced wires, sweat blurring his vision. Zorath advanced, his plasma blade raised. But before he could strike, Vera lunged, driving her dagger into a gap in Zorath's armor. He roared, spinning, and stabbed her again, this time in the chest. Ryan gritted his teeth, finishing the final connection. A high-pitched whine filled the air as the core began to overload. "Run!" he shouted, dragging Vera from Zorath. He held her close, diving through a breached wall just as the core detonated. A blinding white fireball consumed the corridor, incinerating Zorath and most of the hunters. The shockwave hurled Ryan and Vera onto the iron sand outside, his ears ringing, eyes clouded with smoke. As the dust and smoke cleared, Ryan found himself sprawled on the sand, Vera beside him, emerald blood pooling beneath her. He checked her wounds, too deep, too much blood. "Stay with me," he said, tearing a strip from his shirt to bandage her, his hands shaking. "You're not dying now." Vera looked at him, her golden eyes fading. "You promise too much, human," she said, a weak smile crossing her lips. "But I believe you." Ryan glanced at the docking bay, seeing the evac ship lift off, carrying Zykra and the civilians. They'd done it, they'd bought enough time. But the cost was Vera's life, and maybe his own. He held her tighter, feeling her body grow colder. "You changed me," Vera whispered, her breath faint. "I understand Zykra now. The law isn't everything. Maybe compassion is strength." Ryan shook his head, his eyes blurring, not from smoke. "You're the strength," he said. "You fought like a human." She laughed, a small, warm sound, then her golden eyes closed. Ryan held her, feeling her weight in his arms, not a burden, but a reminder of what he'd fought for. But the story wasn't over. As Ryan sat there, cradling Vera's still form, he heard footsteps on the sand. He looked up to see Zykra standing before him, her eyes filled with pain but also resolve. "She's alive," Zykra said, kneeling beside her sister. "But we need to move her now." Ryan blinked, stunned. "The evac ship's gone," he said. "How?" Zykra pointed to the horizon, where another ship, smaller, older, was landing through the iron dust. "I reached a civilian group," she said. "Survivors, human and Sylari, building a safe place. A refugee camp, free from Ravatha's law, built on hope." Ryan looked at her, then at Vera. He didn't know if she'd make it, but he knew he couldn't give up. He stood, lifting Vera with the last of his strength, and followed Zykra to the ship. Each step was a battle, but the weight didn't feel heavy anymore. Instead, he felt a faint light, like a star glimmering through the iron dust, guiding him forward. The ship carried them to a hidden valley deep in the desert, where a refugee camp rose among broken stone pillars. Tents made from ship scraps dotted the landscape, and humans and Sylari worked side by side, forging a new life. Ryan laid Vera on a cot in a medical tent, where a human doctor and a Sylari healer worked together to save her. He sat beside her, holding her hand, waiting. Zykra stood nearby, watching her sister. "You did what I couldn't," she said. "You showed her another path." Ryan shook his head. "No, she chose it. I just dragged her along for part of it." Zykra smiled, a sad but hopeful smile. "You humans are strange," she said. "You carry wounds, yet you find ways to heal others." Ryan didn't respond. He looked at Vera, her chest rising faintly. She was still alive, and that was all that mattered. The next day, as the twin suns rose, Ryan stood at the camp's edge, gazing at the shimmering iron sand. A child, half human, half Sylari, with golden eyes and light brown skin, ran up, handing him a small stone carved with 2 clasped hands, one human, one Sylari. "Thank you, mister," the kid said, "for saving everyone." Ryan held the stone, feeling its weight in his hand. Not heavy, but enough to remind him of what he'd done, and what still lay ahead. He looked to the horizon, where the twin suns' red-orange streaks blended with stardust. The Ravith clan might return, and the war might not be over. But this time, he wasn't fighting alone. Vera, still weak, had woken. She stood beside him, leaning on a crutch made from ship scraps. "You still promise too much, human," she said, eyeing the stone in his hand. Ryan laughed, the first real laugh since he'd set foot on Clyro's 7. "And you still haven't given up, Hunter." They stood together, looking out at the desert, their footprints mingling in the iron sand, a promise that no matter how brutal the war, compassion would always find a way. But far off, a red streak blazed across the sky, a larger, stronger Sylari ship heading for the valley. Ryan gripped his rifle, Vera tightened her hold on her dagger, and both knew their story wasn't truly over. Dear listener, as you turn the final pages of this journey across Clyro's 7's glittering iron sands, I hope Ryan Kessler and Vera's story has left a lasting mark on you. This isn't just a tale of war or survival, it's proof that humanity's greatest strength lies not in weapons or tactics, but in compassion, the ability to see humanity in an enemy and choose to carry them instead of a blade. Ryan, a soldier scarred by loss, and Vera, a hunter bound by the Ravith clan's harsh law, found a shared path through a deadly desert, where iron sand whispers tales of sacrifice and hope. The story's heart lies in a question: what makes us human? Is it Ryan's grit, dragging Vera across the desert despite his own exhaustion? The moment Vera set aside her dagger, choosing compassion over clan law? Or Zykra, the traitor who saved civilians, leading a camp where humans and Sylari join hands? The lesson is that compassion isn't weakness, it's the fiercest flame, able to light even the darkest corners of the cosmos. It reminds us that, though war divides, genuine connections, like the child's carved stone, will always find a way to mend. I wrote this story in quiet hours, when Clyro's 7's twin suns seemed to glow in my mind. The iron sand, the Sylari death squad, the refugee camp, they're pieces of a vast universe where I wrestle with the question: can we change our enemies by changing ourselves? Listener, I need you to help answer that. Did Ryan and Vera's story move you? Did Vera's fight beside Ryan make you feel her transformation? Did the camp spark hope for a united future? And that Sylari ship on the horizon, are you curious what it brings next? Like Ryan and Vera standing together against the hunters, I'm reaching across the void, hoping to connect with you. Your feedback, whether it's awe, debate, or quiet reflection, is the beacon guiding my next stories. We, storyteller and listener, are partners in this imagined universe. And who knows? Maybe, like that red streak in Clyro's 7th sky, a new tale is waiting, but other stories on my channel are calling you first.